There we go. Facebook is doing its thing, and I think we're live. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here, Diana, and everybody else who joins on Facebook and who sees this later. Today, we are focusing on day 3 in the Insight on Anxiety mini series, the body. So, this is going to be just a 10-minute look into the basic of what's happening in the physical body when we experience anxiety and some simple ways to manage it. The series is all about just short, simple, easy to digest information that can help inspire you and empower you to feel better. I'm not a doctor. This is not medical advice. I am a holistic life coach and an Ayurvedic health counselor. So I've got lots of great info for you. I would like to acknowledge that I live, work, and play on the Dena'ina land. That's the indigenous people of this area of Alaska. So as we go through today, I want your brain to be on the lookout for one small piece of information that you can apply to your life, maybe even today. So turn that on. So the body. Now, I'm dividing these sessions into mind, body, and heart, but really everything is connected. So, part of what we're talking about today is the nervous system, and the brain is a part of the nervous system, which we tend to think of as the mind. But I want to think about the physicality of it. So the nervous system is extremely important in understanding anxiety because it is the process, it is the pathways by which we interpret, that we bring in input from the world using our senses, and it goes, our nerves sense it, and then it travels through our body into our brain to be processed. Our brain processes that input and then it responds. It could respond if it's a stressful situation with chemicals that get us, our heart beating fast, our breath kind of tightening up, and we have that real physical response to anxiety. Also, what we process in our brain also leads to the decisions that we make and the actions that we take in the world in response to what that input is. So when we have chronic stress, we're either kind of experiencing input that is stressful, that is like physically, like imagine like being in a really crowded room, like the stress that creates, that's a physical experience of it. Or we're taking that input into our brains, and our brains are making a story, like we talked about yesterday, about that input that then creates stress. So that stress is a result, that anxiety is a result of that, either the input or the processing. And I'm going to share my screen with you here. I want to talk about one particular kind of big group of nerves. Advanced options. That is called the vagus nerve. Now, the vagus nerve is something that we talk a lot about in yoga and Ayurveda when we're trying to talk about the scientific part of anxiety and our response to things. So basically, the vagus nerve is a big nerve that connects the brain with some of our larger organs. So we see here like the lungs, the heart, the spleen, the kidneys, the liver, the stomach, and the intestine. And I really want to point out that there's a lot of nerve endings in our colon, in our digestive system. In fact, now scientists have done a lot of research, and you hear the layperson's kind of version of what they've discovered, described as the second brain. So we have so many nerve endings in our digestive system that that it's comparable in some ways to our own brain because of the amount of information that it is bringing in and also communicating. So this means that your digestion is linked to your nervous system. So if your nervous system is in a heightened state, and by heightened, I mean stressed out. So if your nervous system tends to be sensitive because of you've got a lot of input coming in, or the way you're processing it is creating a lot of anxiety, then oftentimes your digestive system will suffer. You will see symptoms of anxiety in your digestion because of this vagus nerve, because of this connection. And the inverse is also true. This is where we start getting into the realm of Ayurveda, where your digestion, if there is stress in that, then that communicates stress to the vagus nerve, which goes up to the brain and communicates stress and anxiety. So they have a really close connection, so much so that in Ayurveda, digestion is considered the root of wellness, because everything starts there. And this is one way that we can see the link between good digestion and our mental state or our mental resilience. So when you want to think about, so it's very important, if you're in the space for it, to think about how your digestion is doing and if there are opportunities to improve it so that you can help to support anxiety reduction. This was definitely the case for me when I was in my very anxious state a few years ago, burnt out, kind of in a difficult place in my life. My digestion was not very good at all. I had like kind of chronic constipation. Everything was very stuck. And through learning Ayurveda, learning how to eat in a way that helped to reduce the stress in my system, I was able to really feel a physical kind of grounding and calming down when my digestion worked better. So if you're wondering if your digestion might be causing you some additional anxiety, just ask yourself, notice, is your digestion, is it peaceful? Do you get any feedback on either end when you eat food? If you do, that's a sign your digestion is out of balance. Are you stuck? Does it take a long time to go to the bathroom, or does so much come out so often that that's also a sign of imbalance? So good digestion looks like eating something, having no real feedback, and feeling good afterwards. If this isn't you, then this is an invitation to spend some focus time figuring out your digestion. This can take a while. This is a process. This is figuring things out, making small adjustments until you start to see results, and being very patient with yourself. But it's worth it. Sleep is also connected to digestion and your nervous system too. When we're able to sleep well, that gives our body time to process and do the housekeeping that it needs to keep things flushed and working well. So chronic lack of sleep also creates the conditions for a less resilient nervous system. So spending time figuring out that piece is very beneficial. And oftentimes digestion and sleep go hand in hand. In terms of what you eat, it can be very helpful to look at on a basic level, if you have anxiety, eating things that are very easy to digest, that are warm and nourishing. Go with that. So instead of choosing a salad, choose a soup. Do that consistently over time. That's going to just help dial things down a little bit. And to wrap up the digestion piece, caffeine, I know, we all know that caffeine is not great for anxiety, but there's on so many different levels, it can work against us. And if we're not getting enough sleep, we tend to depend on it, but there are other ways to work with this. So let me just encourage you, if you do drink caffeine, to reduce it to as little as possible and keep it in the morning, and include some kind of like fats in it so that it's not so hard on the system. And if you can, at some point, start to wean yourself off of it. And I know coffee, I love coffee myself. Finding a way to enjoy it in small ways that won't be adding to a pattern of chronic stress or chronic anxiety. All right. So I want to wrap up by talking about a little bit more into the Ayurvedic world, which yesterday we touched on this idea of the elements. Ayurveda uses these simplified models to help us understand the world. The elements are a beautiful way to do that. So anxiety, it's all about air and ether, things going around up here, air, like a hurricane blowing in your brain. So on a physical level, thinking about how we can balance this, we can balance it with the opposite. And we think about the earth. What is the opposite of air and open space? Well, it's the groundedness, it's the ground, it's the earth, it's the water. So finding ways to bring that into our lives. So on a kind of a metaphorical, I don't know, metaphors might not be the word level. If air is a lot of movement, then earth is a lot of stillness. So physically having less movement, like instead of jogging, walking, instead of doing lots of fast things, doing one or two slow things. Simple concept, very powerful. If you can reduce busyness, reduce the amount of things you're doing, that is going to help move you down to the earth. Also, thinking about grounding things that create comfort, warm baths, warm bed, warm clothes, snuggles. And one of my personal favorites is self-massage with a warm, nourishing oil. This is a traditional therapy from Ayurveda, and it's recommended you do every day. So you put oil on your skin. You can research this on Google. But the idea is that you have a nice oil that kind of brings in some moisture into the system. The act of stimulating your nervous system with loving touch also helps to ground. So I love this, and I recommend it to everybody as a way to reduce anxiety. All right, friends. That's it. That's what I have for you today. Tomorrow, anxiety and the heart. Stay tuned, same time. And if you have any questions, please let me know. I am here. And if you have any questions about your particular case, I am also here to have conversations to help you figure out your anxiety so that you can feel better. All right, I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.